Okay. I don't see us having a JavaScript document open, so let's go get it. What is JavaScript? It's a programming language designed for web pages. What do you use it for? It's to make web pages interactive so that it's not just a list of data with a button on the screen, effectively. It's so that things that you click on the web page can change the appearance of the web page, or load in new data, or remove parts of the web page, or add parts of the web page. Why do you want to do that? Common JavaScript tasks can replace server-side scripting. Server-side is the other side of the internet. When I make a request to eBay, for example, and I'm searching for a book, then it lists, it accesses its database and it loads up all the list of books that match the name, and it creates the HTML and it sends it back to me. The server's doing all of that. Now, accessing the internet is slow and fraught with peril, right? Because your connection may go down, your wheel may sit there spinning endlessly. And the more your program, your web page can do on the client side without accessing the internet, the better off you are. So you don't want necessarily every single button click and every single motion you make with your mouse or your finger on a web page have to reload the entire page, right? As soon as the page goes blank and you see the little loading wheel spinning, then you know you're in trouble. And as long as that can be minimized, or you can do as much of that as possible using JavaScript rather than server-side coding. So it allows shopping carts, form validation, right? When I'm supposed to be typing in my phone number into a field, it's nice if it can tell me immediately that it's not a valid phone number rather than wait until I've clicked the OK button and it has to try to reload the entire web page. Calculations, special graphic and text effects. So the JavaScript is case sensitive. So if we're going to display something on the screen, it better be document.write all in lowercase rather than mixed case like HTML supports. And of course, certain characters and terms are reserved. It is just plain and simple text because it is loaded just like a web page. Whenever I go to a web page, its JavaScript is sent to me via the same mechanism as all the rest of the text. If I do view page source, I will see references to scripts. Well, here's one. Sure is hard to read because they took all the spacing out and stuff like that, but it's there. Right, here's a script. It's just pure ASCII text, just like the rest of the contents of the web page. So JavaScript uses specialized terminology. Well, all programming does. Objects, properties. What is a property? That's their name for instance variable. Methods, events, functions, values, variables, expressions, operators. Well, what's an event? An event is like if you click on a button on a web page. We've already done event handlers when we were doing our TK Enter applications, our graphical user interface, and we had to make a button and we had to define a function that would get invoked when the button was clicked. It was handling the button click event. So properties are object attributes. For example, you want to change the background color of your web page, document.bg color, where document is the object and bg color is the property. So methods are actions applied to a particular object. Well, it's just a function that's attached to that function, to that object. So document.write, hello world, document is the object and write is the method. It's a function that's attached to that object. Events associate an object with an action. Now, our graphical user interfaces that we created only had one event, which was the button being clicked. On mouse over is the one. When your mouse moves over something, it generates an event. And then when your mouse leaves that object, it generates another one. So the on mouse over event handler can change an image. Or when you click the submit button, then that can submit a form. And so the user's actions trigger events. The web page just sitting there isn't doing anything, but once the user starts scrolling around it and clicking on it and stuff like that, that's when the events are generated. Functions. Functions are named statements. I call them named blocks of code, and you know what a function is. They're defined with the function keyword rather than the def keyword. So instead of def do whatever, parentheses in parentheses, note that there's no colon there, and note that rather than indentation, they use curly braces. JavaScript has built-in functions, and you can make your own. So values. Values are bits of information, numbers and strings and Boolean. Also objects. You create a turtle object, that's a value. And a value can even be a function. And I think I demonstrated this in the past. But if you have a function, where's our, I can't find it. There, right there anyways. Why isn't it not letting me change it? Forget it. Ticks me off when it stops accepting keyboard input. So a variable can hold a reference to a function as well as anything else, right? I could say x is equal to the word print, right? And then I could say x hello, and it's going to print the word hello. Just like that. We know what a variable is. Variables are names that contain values. Use the equal sign to specify their value. To assign their value would be better programmerese. Variables are created by a declaration using the var command, like this. I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it month. Or I'm going to create a variable, call it month, and then store a value in it. We don't have to do this step in Python. We don't have to create a variable name with a specific keyword. We just go off lickety-split and we say month equals something or other. The var keyword is what makes it a variable in this language. Expressions. We know what expressions are. 2 plus 3 is an expression. Expressions are commands that assign values to variables. That's not the definition of an expression. I don't know who wrote this. Expressions always use an assignment operator, such as the equal sign. Var month equals May is an expression. No, this is the expression part of it, but whatever. Expressions end in a semicolon. So we will be ending our statements with semicolons in here. Operators are used to handle variables. Operators are just like plus and minus and stuff like that. Comparison operators such as equal, except you can be sure that you're going to actually be using equal equal. Logical operators such as and or. And control operators such as if, assignment, and string operators. Methods of using JavaScript. You can put your JavaScript in a separate page, or you can put it straight in the HTML, which is what we have been doing. And HTML object attributes can be placed inside element tags. If you want, we could make an HTML page, and then we could write little snippets of JavaScript right inside the statements. There's z.html. So here's our HTML document. It's going to have a head of some kind. It's going to have a body of some kind. And then we close our HTML tag. It would not be a bad thing to do some proper indentation. And so then I'm going to add an event handler. OnLoad is equal to, and when that event happens, when the body is loaded, we're going to run this little JavaScript snippet. Alert, parentheses, quote, welcome, end quote, in parentheses, semicolon, wait. I have a problem here because I'm using double quotes both for, remember what it's called when you have that? That's called a HTML attribute. Well, I'm using the double quotes to mark both the attribute and the text inside the JavaScript. I can't do that. They need to be mixed. So I'm going to put single quotes here. I could have done the single quotes on this one instead, just as long as I am consistent. And there we go. So now when I save that and I run it, as soon as the web page is loaded, it's going to call that JavaScript and pop up a little welcome message. This page says welcome, and we all hate pop-ups, so don't do that very often. Now there's nothing else on my page, right? So it couldn't display anything. But this is in a case of an event handler. The onLoad event is an event. What if we put some text? Like we have a paragraph. We can handle the onMouseOver event. onMouseOver equals alert. Don't do, wait, no, I'm going to leave the apostrophe out, even though it's horrible. Go away, Siri. Don't do that. End quote, in parentheses, semicolon, in double quote, right? And then we have our little paragraph of text. And that was supposed to be a P. There we go. So we have this paragraph of text, but I've tagged it with an event handler that's going to call this JavaScript. Save it. Run it. The page launched and said welcome. And then every time I move my mouse over this thing, it says don't do that. And in fact, it's real hard to get it to not do it. But anytime my mouse moves towards that paragraph, it calls that function. Now that's really annoying, isn't it? Yes, indeed it is. Can we get it to stop doing that, please? Can we leave? How's about you let me leave full screen mode? All right, so anyways, obviously that's a bad idea and I'm going to delete that or comment it out. Well, how do you comment out in this language? Less than, exclamation mark, dash, dash. And then dash, dash, greater than. That is an HTML comment. It's not a JavaScript comment. You want a JavaScript comment, you use the double slashes. I'm also kind of tired of it doing this alert every time it loads. So I think I'm going to get rid of that as well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stick that inside the comment here, just so that stuff is still there, but it's no longer active, right? So now all that pop-up stuff won't be happening. Good enough. Using separate JavaScript files. I could put that JavaScript, I could put my JavaScripts in a separate file and then refer to them with the script tag. So if I wanted to, which I really don't, I could find, where's my text file? There we go. In the header, I could say, yo, we have some scripts and they're stored in a file called myjavascript.js. And as long as they were in the same directory as this HTML file, then they would now be considered part of this HTML document. Now, I don't have that file, right? So I don't need this stuff, but I could go and create and store my JavaScript statements that I'm going to be doing today in this file name rather than putting them straight into the HTML. And then when this document is served by the server, it will load up that JavaScript file and send all those scripts along with the rest of the text of this document. So embedding JavaScript in HTML. When specifying a script, these tags are the things that are essential, but complete specification is recommended. Now, this is making the assumption that there's more than one kind of scripting language available to HTML, and there's not. So we don't really need to add all these requirements. We don't need to add language is equal to JavaScript, type is equal to text JavaScript. One thing that they suggest doing, and this dates back to the 90s when things did not support JavaScript, is that you hide your JavaScript functions inside of an HTML comment so that if something could not interpret JavaScript, it wouldn't see the scripts. Nobody uses a browser anymore that's not capable of handling JavaScript since about 1996. So I would not necessarily think that that's necessary. And it's called hiding. We're putting all of our script information inside an HTML tag, inside the script command, so that these scripts won't trigger HTML syntax errors if it does not support JavaScript. Meh. Using comment tags. This hides the scripts in HTML and prevents scripts from displaying in browsers that do not interpret JavaScript. So that's an HTML comment. However, / is a JavaScript single line comment. It's the same thing we use the the pound sign for in Python. Using JavaScript and HTML tags. Event handlers like onMouseOver are a perfect example of an easy to add tag script. So we're going to make an anchor tag, a hyperlink that when we mouse over changes something. Changes our logo from one GIF to another. Now I don't want to download those files, and so I'm not gonna mess with that right now. But I think we saw that the document has a BG color attribute that we might be able to change. Let's play with that. Let's see if we can get that to work. So my text here, I'm going to make it say on mouse out when the mouse leaves it. I'm not sure why we would only do that. Why not mouse over? Document.bg color equals blue. See if it'll turn the background color. And again, I have the double quote, single quote confusion, so I'm going to use single quotes inside my JavaScript. There, and double clicks to contain the contents of my attribute. You see why I'm doing that, right? Because if a double quote indicates the end of the string, then that would be the end of my command, and I don't want it to. So since the double quote ends the command, I'm using the single quotes. And you can use double quotes and single quotes interchangeably. So if I wanted to, I could put the single quotes here and the double quotes here. Either will work. So now as I move my mouse over, I thought that it was going to be changing the background color of the document blue. However, it did not. How about just testing that alert statement again? Make sure that at least I have that much going. Yep, I do. But I was not able to change the background color via that. That's okay. Notice that when I had it, it did not produce any syntax errors on the screen, even though it did not work. Right? It just happily went on its way. I don't have any indication that it didn't work, and that can make JavaScript programming very annoying. What are these things down here? Okay, yeah, whatever. I'm going to do view page source. That's our page source. I'm going to right click and do inspect. And we can see the HTML and the head and the body. And the body is supposed to have a tag in it. And here's our tag. It's got our mouse over attribute. As I move around here, it highlights the various part on the page, indicating which code corresponds with which element. And this is the one that's built into Chrome. And I know that Firefox has another one. I don't think that Edge has this kind of interactive viewer, HTML viewer built in, but I could be wrong. I'm just not familiar with Edge. Creating an alert message. We know how to do that now. Sample scripts in HTML. So the JavaScript functions go in the script section of the header of the document, while the HTML tags go in the body of the document. So we could create a document that looked like this. It's got an HTML, it's got a head, it's got a title, and then it's got some script tags where we could be storing our scripts. Now, we already have most of this in place. If I come in here, I'm definitely going to get rid of that again, right? I don't want it popping up a message or anything like that. But let's go ahead and add the script tag, right? Title is Rose JavaScript examples. And that's the end of our title. And then we have some scripts coming up. And if I was going to do it full-fledged and be standards compliant and stuff like that, I would use this syntax right here. It kind of fluffs it up. So I'm going to actually undo it, but that's what it would look like. And then I would put my my texts right here, my scripts right here. But I'm going to leave it the way that it was. There we go. All right. I'm going to run it and it's not going to do anything. That's fine. There is no scripting involved in it, right? Even though I had some comments here. All it's got to have is that hello text. And that's the case at this point. So we're going to go and add a button to our web page. Type equals button. And we're also going to add a paragraph that has the ID of demo. And we're giving it ID so that I demonstrated using the ID, I think, previously so that we could use the CSS style attributes to change the color or the appearance of it. Here we're using the ID to get the element inside JavaScript so that we can make it say something else. All right, so I'm going to create a paragraph and it's going to have an ID, and then I'm going to create a button and it's going to have an on click that calls our function. And I'd be so much better off if I just copied and pasted. Because in all likelihood, I'm going to make mistakes and it's not going to work because of my mistakes, and I'm not going to have any error messages indicating why. So this is a function called change demo. Inside change demo, we want to get whatever element has the ID of demo. Not that we have one yet. Document.get element by ID, parentheses, quote, demo, end quote, in parentheses, semicolon. For some reason, the semicolons are left out up here. I'm not going to leave them out. And then e.enter HTML parentheses equals, quote, hello JavaScript, exclamation mark, end quote, semicolon. Honestly, I don't remember if I made these slides or not. I think I did, and so I goofed when I left off the semicolons. Okay, and now we need a paragraph with that tag. So this tag is going to have the ID of demo, like that, and then our hello message is going to change to hello JavaScript when something else is clicked. Well, let's make something that can get clicked then. Button, type equals button, on click equals change demo, and then the text of the button is click me. So button type equals quote button, on click equals change demo. I'm going to be calling our function. The text of the button is click me. We need to close our button. Now, if I don't have any typos, if I click on the button, it's going to call this function change demo. That function change demo is stored in our script section. It's supposed to grab the element with that specific ID and then change its inner HTML to say hello JavaScript. Hello, click me, and it changed it to hello JavaScript. Now, when I do this in class with lots of people trying to do it at the same time, like we were doing, a couple of months ago, then this lesson was the most impossible to teach to work for everybody because we don't get errors. We don't get error messages. What if I had my function name with a lowercase I? Save it, run it. Bummer, it doesn't work, and there's no clue as to why. And I need to do some research about finding a JavaScript editor, a true purpose-built JavaScript editor that would be able to flag things like that. Maybe you remember.
Sublime Text might.
Pardon me?
I think Sublime Text might.
Sublime?
It's like
yeah.
PyCharm, but you can set up for HTML and JavaScript and everything else.
Okay. You may be remembering in the 90s when you would get a little exclamation mark down in the corner, a little caution symbol that said that JavaScript errors had occurred. Well, now they don't even flag that. I guess they decided that the web was filled with so many JavaScript errors that why even concern people about it. So you're saying Sublime. I installed that editor on my old machine at school. Yeah, I'm going to load it up and see, but not now, obviously. Okay, so and here's one where when we click it, it changes from one picture to another. So what I would need to do to get this to work would be I would need to get an image and display it in my HTML. I think I have puppy 1 and puppy 2, and I could purpose that for the same thing. Let's go. Let's give this a shot. Let's see if we can do this. All right, so I'm going to download 2 pictures of Star Wars robots. All right, here's a pretty guy. So this is going to be image1.jpg, and I'm storing it in the same directory as my HTML. Now I'm going to go and get another one. How about the old classic? We're going to save him as img2.html. What did I say? HTML. .jpg. img2.jpg. And so inside here, we're going to add down in our body a reference to one of those pictures. So image source equals img1.jpg. Let's test it out with the minimum before we start scripting it, because if I can't get the picture on the screen, then the scripts aren't going to work. Okay, here we go. And is that a little bit big? Yes, it is. So I'm going to add a style attribute that says width : 200px, semicolon, end quote. Limited size. That doesn't look like it was limited. Did I not save it? Yeah, look at that. Anybody see what's wrong there? I've got a sty. How about putting an L there? All right. So now that we've got that, let's do a little bit of the scripting. I'm going to give this an ID of droid. And then going and looking at our source example, the image is going to have an on-click handler that calls this function. And please forgive me for just copying and pasting. So I'm going to go and put that script up here in the script section. And what does this do? It searches our document object model for an element of the web page named droid. And if it finds one, well, I guess we're assuming that it finds one, then it checks its name, its source. And if its name source matches image1.jpg, it changes it to the other one. Image.source now becomes image2.jpg. Otherwise, it flips it back to being image1.jpg. So if you'll notice, what is it keyed in on? It's keyed in on the fact that SRC, we have an image and we have an SRC attribute. And when we want to change the attribute, we do it like that. You can change any attribute in your web page as long as you can find it by its ID or otherwise. And one of my students even had the creepy idea that you could go in and you could change the event handlers, right? We could do image.onClick equals and then make that thing point to a different function than it had been pointing to. And that's kind of self-modifying code, which is weird, but it was a cool idea. Anyways, it's possible that this is going to work. I don't know, but I'm going to try it. So add a paragraph of text, click the droid, and I need to add the event handler. So onClick equals, and what's the name of the function? Change image. So there's our image. He's got an onClick handler. When he's clicked, it's going to invoke the change image script, which is up here, which is going to change his source from being image1.jpg, our black droid, to image2, our R2D2 looking one. And sure enough, each time we click the droid, changes its appearance. So what are we doing? We're making the web page change itself without having to be reloaded from the server. We're doing client-side programming rather than server-side programming, making a web page more interactive. Before the invention of JavaScript, web pages were incredibly static. They didn't do anything until you clicked a button which reloaded something from the internet. We're talking like 1995. Let's go on. We're getting close to the end of our lecture time. On the other hand, we're getting close to the end of our slides. Say okay. JavaScript can create dialogues. We're going to create a button and its onClick handler. Notice that the capitalization that I've been using and that is sometimes demonstrated in the document is not consistent throughout, but that's because HTML is loosey-goosey and it works either way for some reason. So anyways, this button, when it's clicked, is supposed to call say okay. And when it does, it's going to come up here and it's going to do this. It's going to print something that says confirmation dialog. Well, what's a confirmation dialog? I don't know. Let's just take this line and add it to our existing code, right? So that when we click on the droid, just because I want to see what this does, that statement right there, right? So I'm just temporarily adding it. Save it, run it, click on them. Confirmation dialog, okay, cancel. So a confirmation dialog is the thing that says okay or cancel. Let's get that out of there. But I'm going to go and grab that source code from there to there. And put it here. So what does the dialog do? It pops up that yes, no dialog. And if they've clicked true, it prints yay. Well, it doesn't print yay. It sets a variable equal to yay. Else it sets a variable equal to uh-oh, and then it alerts the text. And if I was a good programmer, I would be doing this, right? I would create my variable before I start using it. However, JavaScript is almost as loosey-goosey as Python is regarding whether you declare your variables in advance or not. There. But we should create our variable beforehand, and then we assign it either one value or the other, and then we can pop it up in an alert box. And we need a button that will call that. I already have a button code here, but I could just copy and paste the one from here, right? So here's our button. What type is it? Button. Well, why do we have to do that? Are there more than one type of buttons? Yeah, I bet there are. Let's go look. I don't care. Yeah. You could have a button, or you could have a reset button or a submit button. And honestly, I don't know the difference. I have not researched what the difference between those would be. Well, anyways, the onClick handler for this guy is supposed to call the say OK function, which is supposed to pop up our confirmation dialog. Save it, run the planet. There's our button. We click it. It pops up our confirmation dialog. We could click either OK or cancel. If I choose OK, it does one thing, prints yay. If I click on it again and choose the other choice, it says, uh-oh. That is probably more than one kind of dialogue in JavaScript. There's the confirm one. But there would be others as well. There's one called prompt, and we've already seen alert. Let's check out prompt. Prompt displays a prompt box which asks the user for something and outputs a message. So instead of popping up a confirmation, we could pop up a prompt. Let's just stick this in here and then not even use it. So when we call say OK, the first thing we're going to do is ask them for the name. Save it, run it, find our button, and see it's asked us for some information. And if I type in Fred, then that would be the value stored in this variable X, right? Or person. How about we make this say RU plus person plus quote question mark end quote, like that. So we've asked for the person's name, and then I guess we're confirming it. Save it, run it, find our OK button, click it. Please enter your name, Harry Potter, click OK, and it says, are you Harry Potter? And I could choose OK or cancel. I chose cancel, so it said, uh-oh, right? So that's what we did here. We prompted for their name. We stored the result in a variable called person. We use that variable inside a confirm dialog. And then based on what they clicked, we set the text variable equal to something. And then we displayed it. So JavaScript can respond to events. Yeah, I definitely did this for my fondness of Grumpy Cat. So here we can make one that sets the height and width of an image. So as long as we have, well, this is an interesting one, and I may need to stop here, but we have an image here. And we could use our droid to do the same thing. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to copy and paste these two so that I can then talk about them. So we now have two more functions, one called bigger and one called smaller. This function, unlike the other one, takes an argument, so it has a parameter, and it changes the height and the width of that argument to these values, 640px. So we can go and change our mouse over and our mouse out event handlers. And what does that mean? Mouse over is when the cursor is hovering over the item. It's not letting me copy that. And mouse out is when the cursor leaves it, when it moves away from the item. So where's our picture? We had a picture. Here we go, right? And so on mouse over, we're going to make this image bigger. This is the object. This is the image. That tag, it refers to the thing that the on mouse over is attached to. This is just like self. Python is weird. It uses self as its keyword to indicate the own object, whereas almost every other programming paradigm I've seen uses the this keyword, including this one. So when they move over it, it's going to make the object larger. And then when they leave it on mouse out, it's going to make it smaller. One can hope. So we have our picture. I moved my mouse over it. It made it huge. When my mouse leaves it, it makes it smaller, right? By triggering those events, which are calling these scripts. And so since we have a reference to ourself, this very image, when we call bigger this, it runs up here. It runs this function, and we change the height and the width of ourself. Now, if I changed only one of those rather than both of those, you notice that the image was distorting, right? It was no longer properly shaped. It's because we did not preserve its height to width proportion because we changed both of them. If we only change one of them, then at least it would maintain its proportions, right? Because it'll scale it. Now I say that, I hope it's true. Yeah, so now he's the same scale that he was before. So the mouse over causes it to get big. The mouse out lets it get small again, and a click causes it to change. So we have 3 event handlers added to that specific object now. OnClick is one of them, right? So close. Toggling and hiding visibility. Let's make a button that hides the picture of the droid. So I'm going to copy this and paste it. What does it do? It gets the element by its ID, and then it checks its display style. And if its display style is not set to none, then it changes its display style to none, which hides it, which removes it from the screen. Else, we can display it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make an entire section that appears and disappears. Right? So div ID equals hider, because it's going to hide, right? And everything from our image all the way down to here. Oh, that's bad. I should not have had a close of body tag there, and I'm surprised it kept working past that point. Anyways, and that's going to be the close of that tag. Wait, what am I doing? That's going to be the close of that division. So let me just tab all that over so that it's clear, right? And then we're going to make a button that tries to hide it or show it. So here's my button. It's got a header just saying what it does. And I'm just going to make this say peekaboo. and it's going to toggle the visibility of what ID? Hider ID. And so it's going to call the toggle visibility function, which runs up here, wherever it is. Did I scroll past it? Have I not put it in here yet? No, I never put it in. Okay. Go and grab this. And this is the last thing we do today. Already kept y'all here 5 minutes too long. So it looks for any item with that specified ID, which is Heidi, and it toggles its display to none or not. And if we set its display to none, then it will disappear. Save it, run it. The peekaboo button causes a bunch of stuff to disappear. Everything inside that section disappears. So we're interacting with the page, we're hiding parts of it, we're showing parts of it, we're changing the sizes of elements. We could be hitting specific ID sections and inserting new sections of HTML. So we're modifying the document object model. The document object model is a representation of the web page once it is loaded. So if I go into memory and choose inspect, and we see all of our HTML here arranged in order, these buttons are actually interacting with this. And so just like I can go over here and I can click on this division and choose hide, that's the exact same that button does. It hid that specific section of the HTML. So now the document object model has removed it from our screen, so we no longer see it. If I feel like showing it again, I can do that, right? I can change hide back to unhide, and now we're back. Our stuff is back. All righty, well, that's just an introduction to JavaScript, obviously. A very bare bones introduction. What's the takeaway from it? No, one takeaway is that we should spend an entire semester on it. But we understand the elements of it, even though we're unfamiliar with its syntax. Once you start looking at it, it starts to make sense. We know how to write if statements. We know how to do assignments. We know what the idea of a function is. Things like that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make the Dropbox for this. Are there any questions before I do that?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm going to close this, stop recording.